Now, stinging nettle is one of the most amazing herbs. It's so nutritious, and it really is like a completely natural vitamin mineral supplement. Really, it tonifies many different organs and organ systems in the body in so many ways. But really, the most commonly used parts of the nettle are the leaf. Second to that would be the root, and they're really quite famous in herbalism, Western herbalism especially. But the kind of unsung hero of the nettle plant would really be the seeds. Now, nettle seeds are really, the lesser known part of the plant, the lesser used part of the plant. They've really not received anywhere near the same kind of attention as the root and the leaf. But they're really profoundly potent parts of the plant and really deserve to have the spotlight aimed at them a little bit more. And really, where I am here in the UK, for stinging nettle that I'm talking about here, Urtica dioica, for this particular type of plant in the climate that I'm in, it is seed harvesting time right now. It has been really for a month, and it probably will be for another month. So it seemed like a good time to make this video. So nettle seeds are actually an extremely potent Jing substance, and I would say that they're probably a bit more yang than they are yin. Now, being a Jing herb, they're going to be very, very nourishing to the entire endocrine system, really, and very tonifying to the kidneys and to the adrenals. They're actually very tonifying to the liver as well. Now, they have a particular affinity for rebalancing thyroid function, especially in the case of hypothyroidism, which is an underactive thyroid. And so, really, the Jing energy here also relates to the nettle seed's ability to work on enhancing fertility and really the reversal of impotence, as well as nourishing the hair, the skin, the nails. And it can also be used both internally and externally for that purpose. Now, nettle seeds are very powerfully rejuvenative, and they actually offer really great immunological support as well. And they have a very specific anti-parasitic action regarding parasitic worms in the intestinal tract. Now, for dosage, you really don't need a lot of these seeds. I mean, a good kind of average dose for an average-sized adult would be about 1/4 of a teaspoon per day, so you really, really don't need much. And they are really quite well known for imparting a bit of a yang energy to them, which can be a bit stimulating for some people. Not really in an adrenal fatigue kind of way, but more in a kind of don't digest them too late in the day kind of way, because some people do report having a bit of difficulty in getting to sleep when they've consumed them too late in the day. So keeping the dose really low and not having them in the latter part of the day, in the evening, it's really a good idea. You can avoid these kind of things from happening. I mean, some people are absolutely fine with it, It's really just more of a case of individual personal constitution, really. And if you already have quite a yang, outpouring character and personality, then it's possible that these seeds are maybe going to have that effect on you. So you want to be consuming them early. And they're so powerful. You really don't need much of them. Each seed is really just the size of a flea, or maybe marginally larger than that. They're absolutely tiny. Once you've picked them, you've dried them, and you've kind of de-sheathed them, they're absolutely tiny. So they're incredibly powerful, and you really, really don't need much of them at all. Well, they've also been used very widely, actually, for normalizing fevers and flu-like symptoms and flu-like illnesses, and they can be really, really effective in restoring balance, actually, to an irritated bowel, and to kind of bringing us some more equilibrium to, various different digestive irregularities. And this is actually more so the case when they've first been prepared in red wine. Now, you can take between 1/2 to 1 teaspoon of them and soak them overnight in, good quality red wine. And, that creates an absolutely potent tonic that you can sip throughout the day. You know, you can just consume that all throughout the day, the following day after you've soaked them. Now that kind of preparation as well has been very successful and very highly effective in treating and repairing damaged lung tissue and the capillaries in the lungs from respiratory conditions like asthma and more acute conditions as well, like pneumonia and pleurisy. Now, good quality nettle seeds are actually really very expensive to buy. You buy a kilo of them, I can't really remember how much they are. They're very expensive though. I mean, I think you can buy a kilo of them in this country, in the UK, for like over £200, which is really a lot. But then when you think about it, they're so tiny and the dose is so small that a kilo would last one person an extremely long time. So if you were to break it down per dose, it would probably cost next to nothing. But the thing is, if you're living in a climate like I am, and, you know, stinging nettle, Urtica dioica, which is what we're talking about in particular, that plant is so widespread in so many different parts of the world. It covers a fairly broad range of different climates, and so if you have that growing wild, there's just no need to buy them anyway, you know. And wild plants are always going to be vastly superior to anything cultivated. I mean, they grow absolutely everywhere around me. They grow all over my garden. You know, it could actually be perceived as a real problem, as a real pest, if it didn't have so many beneficial uses, not just in human health, but also in, you know, gardening, and it's just the most amazing plant. So, yeah, I mean, seeds to buy would be quite expensive, but if you can pick them, definitely get out there and pick them. Now, you just need to make sure that you're harvesting them at the right time of the year, and you really want to make sure that you've dried them properly before you consume them. Now, the nettle blossoms develop once the leaves are way past the point of harvesting, and in fact the appearance of the nettle flowers is really a clear sign to leave the leaves well alone, for internal use anyway. I mean, you could still use them as, you know, a kind of fertilizer for the garden, but definitely not for ingesting, because the leaves begin to form cystoliths, which is actually the accumulation of calcium carbonate. So that can really contribute to calcification in the body, and it can really irritate the kidneys really quite badly. And in fact, before the nettle plant even flowers, you should really only harvest the top two sets of leaves and really avoid ingesting the lower, older, thicker leaves for exactly that reason. Now, they're really easy to pick because the blossoms, they don't have any stings on, so you can just pick them off, and then there we go. You can just collect them like this, dry them like this, and then once they're dried, the seeds really just pop out from inside these little green buds. So like I said, you really want to make sure that you're harvesting these at the right time. And you know it's the right time because the flowers or the blossoms on the nettle don't look like this. Now, what's wrong with this is that they're very new and they're very young, and they're actually growing out kind of horizontally from the stem. And that is a clear indication that they're not ready yet. They're totally in their infantile stages of development, and so they need a bit longer. Really, you know, they're going to appear and you're actually going to wait for weeks, possibly months, before they're ready to pick. Now, you really want them to look more like this. Now, as soon as they begin to start to droop and they start to head kind of downwards, they start to head south, and they're actually more running downwards along the stem, then you know they're ready. They're definitely ready for picking then. So once they've reached that point, you can pick them. You don't really need gloves. I mean, you can wear gloves. The stem will still have some barbs on it. The leaves will still have some on there. So obviously, if you are coming into contact with those, you know, you may get stung. But the blossoms themselves don't actually have any stings on them. So they're very easy to pick. You know, you can just collect them in a bowl, then you can dry them. Now, definitely dry them indoors if you can, because just a slight wind is going to scatter them everywhere. So Drying them, if you have a greenhouse or you have a conservatory or you have somewhere where there's sunlight coming in and the room is warming up quite nicely, you can dry them in there. I actually dry them in a food dehydrator because it's just so much quicker and easier to do that way. If you do choose to do that, you might want to put them in a kind of mesh bag, like a straining bag, the kind of thing that you might make a nut milk or something like that with. And if you put them in that bag, then you can put them in the dehydrator and just dry them that way, because the fan of the dehydrator is going to just blow them all over the place. So putting them in a bag like that that will allow the warm air to circulate without blowing them everywhere is definitely the easiest way to do it. So the process, once they're dried, of desheathing them is actually quite time consuming. You want to sit down and set aside some time to do it properly. So that's really, that's the hardest part of the whole process, is actually desheathing the seeds and collecting them, collecting the kind of the finished product. So that's it really. Like I said, the dose is extremely small. You really don't want to take too much of it, and the tonic that you can make with it with red wine is extremely beneficial. So really that's about it for Nettle seed. Thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I will see you soon.